There we are. So, if you're joining us again, we're on episode 3. Our views are in the triple digits.
Hey guys.
Nate's even in the picture. We're all doing great.
Yeah,
So, we got Betsy to stick around and join us again. We got another full-time team member here. So, episode 3 of the Fancastic Voyage. I'm going to step aside and let Matt take it away.
Yes. So this was my pick. So the reason why I'm taking over is I am insanely excited about this because we chose Predator, or I chose Predator. And no, as always, in no way do we want these remakes to happen, but this was my choice of a movie that has had a huge influence on my life. Got me into films pretty much at a young age. I think I wore out the the VHS that we originally had.
That's how you know you loved a movie.
yeah.
No longer watchable.
It was that. It was Predator. It was Empire Strikes Back and Jurassic Park. I wore out the VHSs on all of them. So this is one that I think is really cool to recast because it has such a unique cast that's very 80s, and I think it would just be fun to bring to the modern day. But directed by John McTiernan in 1987, all-star cast of basically the biggest muscles in Hollywood. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jesse the Body Ventura, you have Carl Weathers, Bill Duke, and it just goes on, and it's such an iconic film. I think everybody is at least familiar with the movie. I mean, you guys are fans of it too.
Actually,
No.
Not that I'm not a fan. I'd never seen it until you chose it.
Really?
Because my mom thought it was going to be too scary. So it was kind of like we never watched it. And then I just never got around to it. And then the alien creature is so terrifying. Like the costume makeup is so scary that I always saw it and I was like, okay, I can't handle that. Like,
so to go off of that, like some back on it that Andrew and I were talking about, in all intents and purposes, this is a movie that probably shouldn't have succeeded. Everything was working against it, from the location. Where was it, Andrew? You said Puerto Vallarta?
Puerto Vallarta in Mexico, yeah.
Oh, man.
With that insanely dense jungle, the shooting was awful. People were overheating. They shut down production for a while. They lost Jean-Claude Van Damme, who was actually supposed to play the Predator. And
that would have been good, but
they completely redesigned the Predator too, and everything that happened that may be viewed as negative, honestly, I think helped it succeed. You have a heavyweight like Jean-Claude Van Damme leaving the production, and that caused them to recast and also redesign the Predator itself. And if you haven't seen the original design of the Predator, like, I'm a huge Stan Winston fan, but it's not really a good alien looking. It looks...
Okay, I'm making a note to look this up.
Yeah, it looks goofy as all hell. I think Jean-Claude Van Damme worked on it for like a day, and then he quit because it didn't show his face.
Wait, really? That's why I quit?
Yep.
That's so egotistical.
Yeah.
Well, that was like you had, this was also in that time where it was Arnold and Stallone, and kind of coming into that where they were basically going toe to toe, and it was blockbuster after blockbuster. So Van Damme obviously didn't want to be the guy who's wearing a mask the whole time to kind of play the B to their A, but
it's funny that you say that, because there's a rumor of how the movie got started was that somebody actually thought of the idea of, or they said the line, well, the only person that Rocky Balboa hasn't beaten yet is E.T. And that's kind of how the whole movie kind of kicked off.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
And then John McTiernan, who directed it, is like a heavyweight as far as 80s and 90s action goes. Die Hard, obviously he skipped the second Die Hard for good reason and came back for the second one. But
You mean the third one?
Yeah, sorry. But with all that aside, I am really happy with my cast. And if you guys are ready, I'm going to go through mine.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Okay, so I'm going to actually start out with director first.
Ooh.
Director is a huge thing that needs to be spot on. And I believe that's somebody that needs to stick to practical effects as much as possible, and somebody that has a good background in action violence. So my two choices, Lee Winnell. If you don't know who that is, that's one of the duo that created the Saw franchise. He was the writer on the first one. I think he wrote the second one, if I'm not mistaken. And then he kind of disappeared for a while and came back to direct the fantastic Upgrade, which is a very low-key action sci-fi movie. And then recently he did The Invisible Man. So
okay.
He wouldn't be like out of the realm of remakes of classic movies. He does a lot of practical effects as much as possible. And obviously with Saw and The Invisible Man and Upgrade, some pretty gratuitous violence in there as well. My second choice is...
Wait.
Yeah.
So if you had picked Lee, or he was redirecting, do you see Predator becoming more of a horror film, like a more traditional horror?
I think
or
it would
still kind of towing the line of action horror?
I think it would kind of, you kind of see it in this movie where the first half, when they're attacking the camp in Central America, it's classic 80s action, a lot of one-liners, and it's just very cheesy. And then it kind of shifts slightly to horror, but it doesn't kind of go full tilt into it. I feel like if Lee Winnell did it, he would really lean into that in the second half. And I would actually really love that because he's a scary motherfucker. I mean,
he definitely knows how to do scare and suspense.
Yes. And my second choice is someone very new. They just came out with a movie not even a month ago, and they were a stunt coordinator for the Avengers films, so Infinity War and Endgame, and he directed the action movie on Netflix, Extraction, with Chris Hemsworth, which is fantastic. It follows in the same vein of like John Wick that we're seeing with a lot of balls to the wall action, very violent. And I think he would be really good, especially with the whole action orientation. So those are my two directors. And then in no particular order, I'm just going to go through all of my actors. So for the main role, I only have one person. And I think, Pargoff, you're going to be a little disappointed because I didn't choose Armie Hammer. I don't really see him in that role. He's an ass kicker, but the only person that I could see kind of taking over is someone that's kind of gone away from the spotlight, and that's Jon Bernthal. The Punisher himself, I feel like he'd be fantastic as Dutch. That gruff Spec Ops guy. I thought Chris Hemsworth and Armie Hammer for a while, but they're just too clean cut. I think of comic books when I think of them, honestly. So,
can we get Betsy a fan, please? Up over there.
Well, no, I just that might have been my pick, but it's fine. I like your pick a lot more because it is gruff and you need that.
And I mean, I guess the backup would be Chris Hemsworth because he's worked with Sam Hargrave and he's definitely no slouch when it comes to action. So my second for Dylan, who would take over for Carl Weathers, and like honestly, to me, it's his most iconic role, even more than Apollo Creed. I've got
love for Chubbs. No love for Chubbs.
Chubbs is a close third.
It's all in the hips. That's amazing.
It's perfect. But for Dylan, I have one really, really recognizable one and then a newcomer. So I have Idris Elba as the complete, everybody knows who it is, fantastic actor. Definitely muscle bound too. I could see it easily. That hand clap at the beginning, I can see that happening between those two. But I honestly think this next choice is who I would lean towards. He's a newer guy. He's only been in 1 or 2 movies. He was in Us, and he's going to be in the Candyman remake whenever the hell that comes out this year. I'm gonna struggle saying his name. It's Yahya Abdul Mateen II. He just looks the part, and he's a fantastic actor as well. So that would be my choice. Going in for Poncho, I only had one choice for this too, and I went straight to Oscar Isaac. That's just who I see.
Ooh, that's a really good one.
That's just who I see.
That's a really good one.
Thank you. And that he was in Triple Frontier, I think it was, on Netflix. And he kind of proved that he could play that commando type role, and he did it really well. And then I'm going to kind of flip this on its head a little bit and do some gender bending for Blaine, stepping in for Jesse the Body Ventura, carrying Old Painless. I honestly see my first female actress choice being Gina Carano, who has been in Fast and the Furious, was in Haywire. She was most recently in The Mandalorian as the Rebellion shock trooper. She comes from a history of MMA, so she's very used to.
She's terrifying,
yes.
Incredibly physically imposing.
She could whip all 3 of our asses with a hand
at the same time.
Yes.
Just speak for yourself. I'm MMA training out in my garage after work every day, so you know.
So she was my main choice. There are a lot of these roles that I don't see as important too much for gender or nationality. Blaine being one of them. Second, if you wanted to stick closer to the whole Jesse Ventura, it would be Dave Bautista. I could easily see him slinging the minigun around.
I had him elsewhere too, but yeah, I can see that.
For Hawkins, who was originally played by Shane Black, who also went on to direct The Predator, I have 2 choices. One has a background in comedy, who is now ripped as hell, and
God damn it.
the other one is also, I think, a really good, or I guess a guy crush between Pargoff and I. So I'm just going to start off with that one and say Anthony Starr, who
I don't even know who that is.
He's a low.
That's a really good one.
He's a low-key actor. He's been in TV, so he was in Banshee, which is one of my favorite action TV shows. It was on Cinemax, so nobody really watched it, but it was really good. Pargoff, you saw that, so you can back me up on that. Mm-hmm. He was most recently in The Boys as Homelander, basically the evil Superman. And
I didn't know until midway through the first season of The Boys that that Anthony Starr played both roles, because he's like the disheveled felon who comes in and becomes the sheriff on Banshee, and then he's basically
he
Bizarro Superman in the new show. Yeah.
He starts off kind of as like an ex-con scumbag and reluctant hero, and then he plays sociopathic Superman in Boys. And then my second, if you didn't pick up on who that was, Kumail Nanjiani, I think would
cross that one off my list.
would be a really good Hawkins, I think. I can see him saying every single line that Shane Black says in that movie, and he's absolutely jacked now, so he fits that role. So for Mac, who was played by Bill Duke, I have two, which I think might even be on your list, if I'm not mistaken, Parker. So I'll just say that right here. Winston Duke. Was he on yours?
Different role for me, so no one can.
So
But
you
he's
guys
on-
are
he's
on the
okay.
same mind link, clearly.
So Winston Duke, as if you don't know, he was in Black Panther, Avengers, and most recently Us. I could see him definitely playing that role. And then kind of a second, kind of unknown actor. His name is Michael Mondo. He was, I'm trying to remember any movies that he was in, but I know him from two things in particular. First one being Better Call Saul. And then the second one, he gained popularity actually in a video game called Far Cry 3, where he played basically a crazy, he played the antagonist, and he did it really well. He was basically like this mercenary version of the Joker. He did that really well, and I think he could play Mac pretty good, because especially during the end, he goes absolutely batshit, just singing Long Tall Sally as he tries to go after the Predator.
It says he's French Canadian too, which I never would have guessed from anything I've seen him in.
Never,
Yeah.
I would have never. For Billy, so I've got not really a problem with Billy. I really like the character, but it's very much a role in action movies, and I think movies in general in the 80s and 90s, and honestly, I still kind of see it today, of the Native American tracker. And I don't think that's aged particularly well.
That's a safe assumption there.
Yeah, I think you're pretty safe to say that.
If I were to stay tried and true, another Banshee alumni that I don't know if you know the name of, his name is Gino Seggers. He played oh God, I can't remember his name, but he was the very imposing antagonist. You would know.
Clay Chayton, Littlestone?
Yeah, Littlestone, that's who it was.
Yeah. Okay.
This massive dude, built like a house. I mean, he's like Winston Duke, but with an extra 50 pounds of muscle. He would be a fantastic Billy, but I would lean more towards the second choice, who is gender bent and not Native American. Her name is Zoe Bell, and she started out as a stunt woman, primarily in Tarantino movies. She was the stunt woman for Uma Thurman in the Kill Bill franchise, and her most recent one was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She played Kurt Russell's wife.
That's right. Yeah.
She played actually herself in Death Proof. She's a great actress, and she can do the stunts. And she.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. And she's from New Zealand too. So if you kind of wanted to go into the whole like native tracker, I guess.
So you didn't quite get away from it.
Yeah. And then for the last of my military crew would be General Phillips. And I think it would be perfect for Carl Weathers to come back and play the general.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
It would just be
That's
awesome
a good one.
to see. If you couldn't get him back, which I doubt, because I hear he'll pretty much take any role, is Stephen Lang, who was in Avatar. He was in Don't Breathe. Like, he looks just like a military man. He's got the high and tight. He's absolutely massive. He looks like a general. So that's who I would choose. And then lastly, the role that I struggled with the most, and that was because I came to the realization that her role doesn't matter at all in this movie. And that's
no.
So I was thinking about it for the past week, and honestly, she does nothing in the entire movie whatsoever. she's there to spout exposition about the Predator, talk about her people having somewhat of a mythology about the Predator, and to be a damsel in one scene and get Hawkins killed to be the first victim. Other than that, she provides nothing to the story. She's just there. She's not a love interest. She doesn't give any context to anything. The mythology that she sets up is completely something that's thrown away. She says that her people knows this creature because it comes and hunts men during only the hottest of years. Like, that's information that we don't need. So with that, I think you can completely shift that character and replace it with somebody else. And the whole movie, if people don't remember because of the Predator, is that this elite squad of commandos is going in for a rescue mission. So they're going in and trying to extract, I think it's a CIA agent. And I think you could build off of that CIA agent character. And this is completely out of nowhere, so these are just two actors that I really like. First one being Henry Golding, who was in, if I'm not mistaken...
Is it The Gentleman?
Yeah, he was in The Gentleman, and then most recently, or before that,
Crazy Rich Asians, right?
Thank you. Yes, that was the one. So he's, very clean cut.
That would be interesting.
Devilishly handsome. I could see him playing like a CIA agent.
Yeah.
And secondly is someone that I absolutely love because I'm a huge Kung Fu fan, and the Raid 1 and the Raid 2 are my all-time favorite Kung Fu movies. I still don't know how to say his name because he's from Indonesia, and I think it's pronounced Iko Uwais. It's Uwais. Honestly, he's just awesome. He's just a shit kicker. And that's my list. We've got John Bernthal, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Gina Carano, Oscar Isaac, Carl Weathers, Anthony Starr, Michael Mondo, Zoe Bell, and Henry Golding with Lee Winnell directing.
That'd be a good movie. I like some of the plays you did there, like the gender swap characters.
Yeah.
I appreciated that because you're right. A lot of these roles, they can be played by anyone. It's not like, oh, this has to be a woman or this has to be a man, or like they have to be African American or Native American.
It's also such an 80s like testosterone-filled macho thrill ride that I don't think it really fits in this day and age. Like, look at the Expendables. I feel like that's the closest thing that we ever got.
Yeah.
They're not good.
I actually really like the Expendables, but it's supposed to be an 80s action movie. That's why it's good.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I know people hate it. It's fine.
So
to your point about Jupiter Ascending, Betsy, the Expendables actually knows what it is. So the Expendables is good for that reason.
So I feel like
it's fine.
Instead of it being like a complete like remake, get away from a lot of the things that made it what it originally was, because that was perfect for its time. The macho characters, being set in Central America, which, a lot of Cold War shit there. Next.
You want to go or you want me to go, Bets?
I'll go next because I feel like your list is going to be stronger than mine. So we'll end strong here. I'm just going to be honest. So we'll end strong. And I'll be kind of quick. Okay. So I'm going to start off with my director, which is actually kind of funny. Before we started this call, I said I had like kind of a stupid moment. This was it when I was thinking of my director. And I wrote down all the actors' names that were in the original movie too. So this was why it's equally stupid, because I ended with director. So what I thought originally was like, oh my gosh, I have to have the guy who did Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. So I looked up that director. Turned out it was Shane Black. Turned out he's already directed a Predator movie. I was like, okay. Okay.
That's good. So did you? Unlimited. Okay. Did you know, actually, fun fact, that Shane Black originally wasn't supposed to play Hawkins? He was brought on to fix the script because he was a scriptwriter. And then they just hired him.
Oh, wow.
That was a good hire.
Yep.
So there was a little bit of validation there because, I mean, he clearly, one, was in the movie, and two, has directed a Predator movie. So I felt good about my choice there. I was like, okay, cool. The alternative that I also thought was the Russo brothers, because action movies, they know how to tell a really good story, but also play into that action side of things. So I just kind of thought they would be good. But yeah, I liked Shane Black because of his work in Kiss Kiss Bang 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 and The Nice Guys. I think he does toe that line really nice with suspense, comedy, action. And that's why I liked him.
He still has a lot of that like 80s flavor to him too, with like a lot of the things that he does. So he definitely fits the bill.
Yeah. So then what you didn't do, did you talk about the Predator?
I didn't, because honestly, while he's important, I think any tall stuntman can play him. Okay.
So you went that route. I went with one of your favorites, actually, Matt, and I don't know how you feel about him, Andrew, but Andy Serkis.
I would say yes, but he's too short.
Yeah, that was my only thing with it, because I know he's so small in stature. I was like, okay, it doesn't work. But here's the thing. If it does get remade, and I mean, you know my stance on CGI versus practical. I'm practical all the way, 100%. But you know, if they remake it today, it's going to be CGI for the most part. And he can do CGI so well that the way that he moves and could do the special effects side of it, that's where I was going with that one. So I know he's too small. Maybe if he got stilts or something.
If they did go
get some lifts.
If they did the CGI route with like Thanos, where Josh Brolin was playing Thanos, and Thanos is like pretty much the height of Predator, but Brolin isn't. I could see that. I can definitely see that.
Yeah. So that's that one. So then we'll go on to Dutch. So obviously Arnold, somebody who seems very like Arnold Schwarzenegger-like and happens to, you know, marry his daughter, is Chris Pratt. So I was just kind of keeping it in the family.
I'll cross that one off my list too, Betsy. Thanks for that.
So I picked Chris Pratt. I think and I did actually have Chris Hemsworth originally, but like Matt said, he's just too pretty sometimes. Like he's a little too clean cut sometimes. So
I will say, if you haven't seen Extraction, definitely see that.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet.
He does a really good job of like the special forces like operator. He's very good at it.
Okay. So he was on there too, but I ended up with Chris Pratt because I think he can play the grittier side. I was thinking towards the not that I condone these movies, Jurassic World remakes. Do not like them.
Those are not remakes. Those are new movies about a different part, because they still haven't learned that the dinosaurs are going to kill everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, 6th time is the charm, right?
Well, let's just move on.
That's another podcast. We'll do another day.
Yeah, we got to unpack that later. There's a lot to unpack there. Anyway, so I picked Chris Pratt because I think he can kind of toe the line between gritty and action star. He's also ripped, which helps. Yeah. And so then moving on to Sergeant Mac, played by Bill Duke. I actually, as you were talking, I kind of switched mine around. So I originally had Idris Elba as Sergeant Mac because he is kind of like that cop type. We've seen Idris Elba play traditional like law enforcement roles, similar to this character. he's a phenomenal actor, so I thought, that would be a good one. But I actually switched it around with my other character, and I went with Donald Glover. So
That would be interesting.
yeah, so I thought he could be kind of fun. As we were talking, I was like, yeah, because I think he could play up that scene running into the woods, forest, jungle. And I think he would just be, he'd have fun with it. I know he's kind of small, but he is muscular. He's more toned, so.
I don't know how. I don't think Bill Duke is that big. I'll look it up.
No,
he's kind of muscly.
He's normally fully clothed too, so you don't really see that.
Okay.
He's not Arnold.
Never mind.
So I'm good with that.
6'4". Never mind.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's hard to tell when they're all like these bigger guys.
Yeah.
You
They're
honestly
all
can't
huge.
tell who's short and like
Exactly.
small and who isn't. So, yeah. So I switched those two around as we were talking. So then I put. So I originally had Donald Glover as Dylan. So I switched him around and put Idris Elba there. So he's still in my cast because still phenomenal, still a great actor, still needs to be in the movie. And sorry, my notes are a bit scribbled and all over the place. So then
Matt picked all the same people I did, so I had to cross a bunch out and start taking notes on the fly.
Yeah, I started like taking notes as I was going. I was like, things to look up later. Oh shit, Matt chose him. Like, so, okay. Where was I? Okay, so Billy, again, kind of that typical action role. You see that kind of character pop up a bunch. Not like the most special role in the movie. So I kind of went with somebody, and this is going to sound terrible, that just kind of fits that bill where they're good at what they do, but they're not super memorable ever. So they're better as like a secondary character. And don't shoot me for saying this. I picked Scott Eastwood. So like, Scott Eastwood is, while he is a good actor, he's not super memorable in anything to me.
It's true. I mean, I like him, but everything he's been in, it's like, oh, there's Clint Eastwood's
son. Yeah. Clint Eastwood's good-looking son. Yeah. That's how I feel about it.
He's good, but yeah, you're right. He's not very memorable. I mean,
yeah. So it's not that that role's not memorable or anything, but you just kind of need an actor who can fit that typical action role, and he is good at action. So in comes Scott Eastwood. That's where I went with that one. So that was Billy. And then the ones that I kind of had fun with, not that I didn't have fun with all of them, but so same with Anna, because Anna is like, why are you in this movie?
Yeah.
It just was like, I get some of it, like, and then she survives. Anyway. So stupid. So anyway, I thought if you kind of were going to redo this role, right? And I still wanted to stick with like a strong female for this role, because I think you should flip it on its head where she is kind of more of a gritty, live through the jungle female. And I wanted somebody who could act well with Chris Pratt. So I picked Zoe Saldana, because you've seen them in Guardians of the Galaxy. I think Zoe is a great actress, and I think she could bring some grit to the role and kind of make it more memorable, actually give the character some backstory and some use within the film. So I picked her. So that one was fun. And then my gender swap for Poncho. This one I had fun with. And I picked Gal Gadot.
Yeah.
I can never pronounce Gadot. Gal Gadot.
You pronounced the T. You're good.
Oh, do you?
Got it right the first time. Yep.
Okay. So I picked Gal Gadot. And we've seen her in Fast and Furious, so she can do action. And Wonder Woman, she kicks some serious ass. So I liked her for that role. I thought she would be kind of cool as Poncho.
Yeah, I think she'd be fantastic in that.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, so I had fun with that one. And then for Hawkins, I had fun with this. I also went the comedy route. So actually, I don't know if you would consider him a comedy actor. I think you would. Who's also ripped and also a Guardians of the Galaxy cast. Seems like I got stuck down a pigeonhole there. But I picked Bradley Cooper.
Oh, yeah.
So
I like Bradley Cooper.
yeah, I thought he would be fun. So I was like, okay, that'll be fun. And then lastly, for Major General Phillips, I wanted somebody older. I wanted somebody from the 1980s action film series. So I picked Chuck Norris. So I went with Chuck Norris as that role.
Would be a really good callback.
Yeah. How old he is now?
I still looked him up. He's still active. So
yeah. He's like 80, isn't he?
I don't think he's quite that old, but he looked good if he is 80. I mean,
he's the best looking like 70, 80-year-old guy.
Oh shit, he's 80 years old. I didn't know that. You are right on the money. He looks so good. Okay.
He does look really good.
Okay. So I'd call back really to good. Chuck Norris. Didn't know he was 80, but I think he could still kick some serious ass. So.
I mean, he looks better than like most 50-year-old men. So.
Yeah. He drank from the fountain.
Oh, that's a good one.
So I had fun with that one too. But yeah, so there's my list of actors. So to recap just quickly, Shane Black, still sticking with it. As the director. Going with Chris Pratt as Mike Dutch, Zoe Saldana as Anna, Gal Gadot as Pancho. Blaine. That was the other one I had fun with. That's who I missed. Okay, so Blaine. So I stuck with the Jesse, actually. But I went I flopped it to this very weak person because I thought it would be kind of fun. And I went with Jesse Eisenberg. So I just thought it would be really funny.
You know, the point when you're going through your cast, I was like, if Hollywood actually did remake this, they'd probably go with hers. And then Jesse Eisenberg as the muscle.
So to tee that up, Blaine is like the muscle of the entire group of guys who are the most muscular guys of all. And then you bring in the guy who plays Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah. I don't know why. I just couldn't get out of my head. I'm like, I just think it would be really funny.
I don't even know if he could pick up Little Painless.
No. I'm just going to say no.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
He's a good actor.
Oh.
I think it was just because I thought he was a good actor. I was like, I'd like to. We haven't seen him do any kind of role like that, so I think it would just be fun to see him take on an action role.
Yeah,
he would need a bodysuit, but it's fine.
He did American Ultra.
Did he?
Yeah, he played a sleeper agent that was like reawakened. And he was like a Jason Bourne type figure, but he was like a pothead and everything. It's surprisingly a fun movie. I think you would like it.
Okay, I'm adding that to my list too. I've not seen that one. Okay, so sticking with it. I don't care. Go with Jesse Eisenberg.
I mean, now that you mention it, he might be a good Hawkins option too. Like he's got the comedic element. I think yours is more closely like if it actually was made again, your cast more resembles what it would come out. Like we're going to have 3 incredibly different movies. And I think that's why this is so fun to do. And the exercise is so enjoyable because all 3 of us are going to have 3 dramatically different movies by the time we're done. So, I don't know if that was me or what. All right. So my list, I'll start with, get Anna out of the way because I have thoughts on this. These movies are so muscle bound and action packed that you don't have people in the story that can really tell it very well or move it along. So she's effectively the plot in the movie that needs to be told because Arnold and Jesse Ventura and Carl Weathers aren't necessarily moving it themselves. So I really think that's the only her only point. And she's extracted, if I'm not mistaken, under false pretenses because Carl Weathers is trying to get his people helped out, and that's not what they tell Arnold and the whole team, if I'm not mistaken. So I just stuck with that character. I'm the only one who – that's all right, though. Different movie.
No, I get – now that you say that, though, it does make a point because she does kind of act as the pacing and the transition piece. And I hadn't
just
considered that.
There are certain things also that she does. Like, she's the only one that's not carrying a gun, and that's how they figure out that the predator only hunts for sport. It only goes at people that he deems a threat, hence weapons. So
she witnesses the predator, and she's able to basically alert them to it, and then start going into the story of my people. This creature comes out. So to your point earlier, Matt, I went with someone who you both know her. You won't know her name, but you'll know her as the girl who you've mistaken for as Megan Fox multiple times. Her name is Odette Annable, I think is how you say it. Both of you look her up, and I guarantee you've both seen her in something and been like, that's Megan Fox. No, it's not. It's the girl that looks exactly like Megan Fox.
Yep.
Oh, she plays the love interest in Cloverfield.
Yeah, she is. So talk about coming full circle. She was in Banshee too.
No shit.
She was Nola in Banshee, and then
apparently I need to watch Banshee.
Banshee's
so
fantastic.
You
would like it. It's an 80s or 90s action movie in a TV series.
It's really good. She was also she was one of the children in Kindergarten Cop with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I saw that on the list.
Full circle. I thought that was good. So that's Anna. So Anna's done. I never want to talk about her again, and we can move on. So you talked about John McTiernan. Predator was his second movie, so I guess not a bad sophomore appearance as a director. The next, Predator being the first, from 87 to 90, the three movies he directs are Predator, Die Hard, and Hunt for Red October. Doing pretty well for yourself, I'd say, with that stretch of movies. What I will never forgive.
Oh no.
Wait, I forgot. I also wrote down Last Action Hero.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Last Action Hero is legitimately probably one of my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movies of all. And that is like the inside baseball parody of Hollywood and action movies and everything about it.
Yeah. I mean, John McTiernan was in that role. He helped birth, or I guess birth's not the right word, but he was one of the people to really popularize it with his movies. I mean, Predator and Die Hard are considered like two of the greatest action movies of all time. And then you coming out with Last Action Hero, where he basically flips everything that he's done, and he makes a satire of his own movies, and it's great.
Yeah,
I mean, it was. And then we're not going to talk about Rollerball, so.
No. I'm not. This is my time.
Which is the one that you're not going to forgive? That's
Rollerball.
Oh. Okay.
Him remaking Rollerball with Chris Klein before everybody realized how awful Chris Klein was as a leading man. It's like Chris Klein, Rebecca Romaine Stamos, and LL Cool J, which I'll give LL Cool J a pass because of Any Given Sunday and because of Deep Blue Sea. But everybody else in that movie and Rollerball.
You're giving him a pass because of Deep Blue Sea.
Hey man, he came out with a banging.
Deep Blue Sea and then talk to me.
Hey.
I'm pretty sure that's the shark movie, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean,
where he's the chef that survives.
The chef with the parrot.
Yeah. He swears at his parrot the whole time. We're spending way too much time talking about LL Cool J here.
I'm not going to forgive IMDb for claiming that Rollerball is his second most popular movie. Because when I went to John McTiernan's page like a week ago, it was Die Hard, Rollerball, Predator. You could have put Last Action Hero, Hunt for Red October, whatever. All right.
That's the last time I'll ever use IMDb as a reliable source of information then. So we'll start at the top. How neither of you mentioned The Rock as Dutch. I think, like, if someone comes to mind now, I didn't pick him. I think it's almost unfair to include The Rock. But he was the first person that came to mind. Chris Pratt was my sleeper pick. And then I was taking a shower and getting ready to do a little bit of research before we started. And I realized I didn't use Jason Momoa at all. I think Jason Momoa could be really good and like completely out of left field. but he is like, he's got all these videos of him doing his axe throwing and doing all sorts of manly stuff outside. Like he is, I think he would be really good. It would definitely be a different movie, but I think he would be really good.
I actually think that's a really good choice.
So fun fact, Billy, who was the Native American tracker, was supposed to be the main character of the film. So it was
really?
It was supposed to be like this Native American tracker going toe to toe with an alien. So, and then Arnold Schwarzenegger. So
and then Billy ends with 6 lines of dialogue in the entire
and
movie.
They don't even show his battle.
Role.
They don't even show his battle, which kills me.
All right, Billy.
So,
fight the good fight.
So Dylan is next. This is where I had Winston Duke as one of the people that I think would be really good as Dylan. This role you need charisma, and it needs to be someone who also has that chemistry, or like they have a pass with Dutch, and you have to believe that. Another one that I thought would be really good, and talking about coming full circle, he plays the son of Apollo Creed in both the Creed movies. I think this would be really cool for Michael B. Jordan to do.
Yeah.
I had Michael B. Jordan as my Dylan, and then I crossed it out.
Did you really?
Yeah, because I agree.
I think he'd be really good, and
he'd be
I don't know
perfect.
if either of you have seen this recently. He's playing the main character in the Scarface remake that's being rumored to be coming out. So
not only that,
I thought that was
but
interesting.
He's also, I forget the name of the actual. So he's playing a very popular Tom Clancy hero who is the Forces guy, John Clark.
Really?
So he's kind of playing the role. So.
Yeah. He's got that charisma. He's not as boisterous as Apollo Creed was, but like watching him kind of find himself in the Creed movies. He's incredible in Friday Night Lights, the TV show, if you haven't seen that. I mean, there's Fruitvale Station. He's Killmonger in Black Panther. I'll defend him regardless. Yeah, like 12-year-old Michael B. Jordan in The Lawyer. Next up was Mac. So I went a little bit differently than both of you here. I'll give you who I didn't go with first, but the 2 choices I had, I think Anthony Mackie could be really good here.
Yeah.
I think what you need, Mac is basically the glue guy of their whole team, and he kind of knows what everybody, like what makes them tick, kind of how to keep them on, like, I don't know who he offers the gum to, but like there's a couple little instances like that where he's kind of the one, he's like the locker room guy where he keeps everybody else in check and make sure they're kind of in line. I think Daniel Kaluuya would be really, really good. So that's who I picked. He's the main character in Get Out. He's also he's in Black Panther, among other stuff. But I think he would be really, really good as Mac.
If you haven't seen the movie, it's not my favorite movie. It's still decent. It's called Widows, and Daniel Kaluuya plays like an enforcer for Brian Tyree Henry's character, and he's actually pretty fucking scary in that role. Like,
is he?
He looks crazy, and he's always there, like intimidating people. I can see him in that role.
And I don't know. I can't remember the name of it. It's something in Slim. It's where he's on the first date with a girl. What is it?
Queen and Slim.
They're on the first date, and the cop pulls them over, and something happens where I think they end up defending themselves and killing the cop. So they're basically on the run as like Bonnie and Clyde. I haven't watched that, but I've heard that was pretty good. But I think he was my pick. I think he'd be really good.
I can see that for sure.
My next one was Poncho. So this was the character I gender swapped with too. I had 2. I didn't end up going with the gender swap choice, but I think she'd be really good. She's been in Oculus. She's been in a lot of the Avengers movies, and then the Jumanji movies as well, is Karen Gillan. I think she could be really good. She's a total badass. She's already been she's done it in the jungle before with both of the Jumanji movies. Is it Nebula is who she plays in the Avengers movies? Nebula. So yeah, like she takes no shit. I think she'd be really good there. But I think it's kind of in a similar vein to Oscar Isaac. I think Sebastian Stan could be really good here.
Yeah.
I love Sebastian Stan.
He's
Just
great.
for personal reasons.
All I'm saying is if we ever do like a Star Wars, like the original trilogy recast, he's my Luke Skywalker. So
they're like a shot for shot
like a good Luke
doppelganger.
Skywalker.
Betsy,
The
if
side
you
by
haven't
side images
seen
of
it,
those two are terrifying.
yeah, if you haven't seen it, somebody what's the word? Basically
Like deep faked.
they like copied basically Mark Hamill's hair from
Okay.
up onto him, and it looks exactly like him.
Okay.
Yeah. Take a look
I
at
just
that.
think
They
he would
look
be
strikingly similar.
good in that like whiny, and everyone knows Luke is whiny, so I'm not gonna get any boos for this, but he'd be good in the whiny hero role.
Station to pick up some more power.
Exactly.
Definitely Anakin's kid.
Yeah.
So these last couple, I think I like my pick for Blaine better than any other pick in the entire movie. So I'm going to save him. But for General Phillips, I went with Kurt Russell. I think Kurt Russell would be a nice touch here.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even do my director. I just shit on Rollerball and then forgot to. We'll come back to director. So Kumail Nanjiani was the only person I had for Hawkins, and I was like, there's no one else I'd want in that role. And then you did that. So I did a little bit of soul searching while Betsy was going. Thank you for stalling, Betsy. And
you're welcome.
I think Garrett Hedlund would be a nice touch. So Garrett Hedlund was in Triple Frontier. He was in Four Brothers. He was in the Friday Night Lights movie, among many other things. Was it Tron he was in too? The newer Tron?
Yeah, the sequel.
So he's been in a ton of stuff, and I think
this guy.
Yeah, he's kind of got the barbs and the kind of the funny offhanded remarks that Hawkins has. He's done that before, in a sense.
It's weird. I always find it weird that he's not really popular.
Yeah.
Like, he's in a ton of big movies, but he's not a household name. I don't think he's won any awards.
Yeah, it seemed like he did like a handful of movies, and then he was like 26, 27. You're like, this guy's going to be a big deal. And then you're like, where did he go?
If you want, he's in a really good role. Directed, actually, I think Lee Winnell directed the movie. It might have been James Wan, though. Death Sentence. Garrett Hedlund plays the bad guy. And if you haven't seen it,
really?
It doesn't look anything like him.
That would be good.
Check
that out.
He looks like a skinhead. It's interesting.
Looks like he's going to be in some big stuff coming up. So
yeah, I'm surprised he hasn't blown up yet. So
he's apparently also dating Emma Roberts. Fun fact that I just learned.
Shit.
This is, if you're keeping score at home, this is the second consecutive appearance where Betsy has discussed one of the casting choices, love interests.
Okay, last one was still weird. I'm just saying.
No, that's completely fair. A 30-year difference in age is fair. So for Billy, which I think he's just so criminally underutilized in this movie, and there's so much that, like you said, he basically sacrifices himself to go toe-to-toe with the Predator, and they don't show any of that. This is where I picked Batista. I think Batista could be good here, but my other choice, who's one of my all-time favorites, is Taylor Kitsch. I think Taylor Kitsch, he's not Native American, and we're not keeping the role that way, but I think he's someone who could be, I'd want the character expanded upon a little bit, but I think that's something that he'd be good in.
I would actually fight you for Dave Bautista, because I think about it, everything that Billy's notable for, Bautista does really well. He stands there looking imposing. He's got a very infectious laugh that the Predator uses The way that he delivers lines is kind of like Bautista. I think he would be good in that.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm my man crush for Taylor Kitsch is certainly swaying my choice here. I'm not hiding
it has not gone unnoticed.
So for Blaine, this is my last character. Then I have to go back to director. Only had one here. He's been in, among many other things, The Losers, The Walking Dead. He was in Rampage, which I watched with my kids, and they really enjoyed. Maybe most notably known as Denny Duquette from Grey's Anatomy, Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Blaine.
Yeah,
he can play a heel. So this is where Blaine is like, Blaine is on the good team, but like you don't know if you like him, and you're pretty sure he's an awful person, like just from most everything he says. But he's on the good team and he's protecting the other good guys. So you're like, I want him on my side, but he's not the person I want to hang out with once we get back home and we're kind of assimilating back to life. But
not getting a beer with him.
I would definitely get a beer with him. Makes you a goddamn sexual tyrannosaurus. He's got, honestly, I think he's got the best lines in the entire movie.
Yeah,
he's dug in like an Alabama tick.
I don't know how many of them we're going to be able to keep in this 2020 remake. But I think he does have a lot of really good ones.
Oh, I censored the sexual tyrannosaurus, so.
Yeah, this is a family podcast, so.
That'll be a perfect segue to Jurassic Park if we ever do that. So coming back to director, which Rollerball, you can tell how much I hate it because I literally didn't even tell you who I chose for director. I had two that are two directors that I really, really enjoy. I'm going to give you my ultimate choice second. My first option, who I think takes the movie in a completely different place, which isn't where I think serves this movie best, is Quentin Tarantino. From an action standpoint and a gore standpoint and a suspense standpoint. I think he could do a lot of really good things, but I think it detracts from what this movie ultimately is, and I think what makes it what it is.
I got a
predator. Who I went with ultimately, so my rationale was like, we discount Michael Bay because Michael Bay is in just a cheesy class of that's another podcast too. We can talk about Michael Bay. But you think about the shootouts, the explosions, kind of following and tracking the team as if you're the predator, capturing an action dynamic and doing so. And the person I'm thinking of is the director of Manhunter, Heat, and Collateral, and that's Michael Mann. I think Michael Mann would be really good for a lot of the action stuff here.
That's twice name dropped him for director.
What? What did I name drop him before?
I'm pretty sure you did. I thought you did.
No, Jaws was Fincher. I think Fincher was my only choice.
That's right. Yeah, I mixed up Fincher with him.
Yeah. I was like, man, I already forgot we've only done 3 of these. I just think a lot of what most notably came to mind was the last gunfight towards the end of Heat after they leave the bank and they're in the street on either side of the cars. Something that he did in that movie is the actors actually spent a lot of time shooting. So it's actually them firing the guns. So kind of the wanting for it to be as realistic as possible. I think it's Tom Sizemore. Is it Tom Sizemore? No. Who's the guy I always confuse with Tom Sizemore? Who's in the Tarantino? It's not. Oh my God.
Michael Madsen.
Is it Michael Madsen? No, it's Tom Sizemore.
No, yeah,
Heat, right?
Tom Sizemore's in Heat.
So Tom Sizemore can't shoot a gun realistically, or at least it looks awful. So he's never in any of the close-ups. So Mann's dedication to trying to make it look as realistic as possible, I thought would be really good since this is a movie full of explosions and gunfights and combat. but I think that was everything I had. I don't know if we talked about the most masculine handshake ever becoming a meme, but even if we did, I think we have to touch base on it again. And Matt, I talked about this with you before Betsy got on. I've never felt like less of a man after watching a movie than watching this, because it's just like as much muscle and testosterone and as little body fat that's ever been recorded on any movie set at any time.
I mean, to quote It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, sheer body mass alone, or muscle mass alone. I mean, it's insane. They've got all these bodybuilders in there.
I know, because when I was kind of like, I wanted to dig into the history of some of the actors that were in the movie, and they were like wrestlers, bodybuilders. Like that's where their career started, was in the muscle building area. And I was like, oh, okay, like this makes sense. I feel like they just went to Venice Beach and they're like, that guy, that guy.
The behind the scenes of this movie, I was talking to Andrew before this, is probably like some of my favorite stories of like behind the scenes type things of everything that they did. One thing that we didn't talk about was when they were getting sized up for their outfits. Jesse Ventura, the tailor or the costume designer, let him know that his sleeves were 1 inch wider from Arnold Schwarzenegger's, and he just gave Arnold hell through the entire film because he had bigger arms than him. So, like, and
could you imagine that? Like all the alpha male stories though about just those guys just giving you, because if you like Jesse the Body was a wrestler. You have Arnold, who was he was Mr. Universe. He was the world's strongest man. You have Carl Weathers, who is no slouch himself. He's friggin' Apollo Creed. But yeah, I can't imagine just, and then Matt, we talked about that too, where they would wake up at 3 a.m. to get a full workout in before their like 6 a.m. call times. So it's like these guys are already in peak form. They're like, they're. Oh,
and Betsy, I don't think it was like regular workouts. I'm pretty sure they tailor made it after like special forces workouts. like they want the mindset. So.
Like they're really gonna go fight a predator.
Yeah, pretty much. Which originally this movie was titled Hunter. So.
I honestly think that's not a bad title. Like I can
Alien
see that.
vs. Hunter.
See, that doesn't work, but you can't think about the sequels because they really didn't know that all those sequels were coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Hunter's kind of interesting, but I think it gives it away a little bit because like part of the storyline that is revealed is like, you know, the Predator wants the sport and he's doing it kind of for fun. And then that's why Dutch is such a great foe for him, is he's like, oh, you're a worthy competitor. Like you're somebody worth hunting. So like it kind of would have given that part away a little bit too much if he said that. Although Predator says the same thing in a different way, because if you're a predator, you're a hunter. So
yeah. One of my favorite things about this is once again, look up the original design for the Predator. It looks good.
Oh, I did. Terrible. It's so stupid looking.
It looks like an alien bipedal dog with one eye. It's really strange looking.
Andrew's face right now.
Yeah. And do you know, well, it's Stan Winston is the one that designed it, but do you know who was kind of the linchpin in changing the design? It was not Stan Winston. It was James Cameron. So
really?
Yeah.
He gave him the fangs, right? Or
yeah.
They were?
So I'm pretty sure the story goes that they were on a plane together, and Stan Winston was talking about redesigning it, and James Cameron leaned over and was like, I'd really like to see a monster with mandibles. I've always wanted to see that. And then we have the incredibly iconic, probably, at least for me, the most iconic Alien out there, even more than Alien, I would say, or at least toe-to-toe with that. And even though I don't want to give him credit, got to give at least some credit to James Cameron.
Well, he
that's interesting.
That is the stupidest looking costume I think I've ever seen. So it's like we saw this with Jaws too. Like the shark didn't work, so you don't see the shark for 60% of the movie. Like if it's that costume, this movie is garbage. You look at the new costume, he's so imposing with the mask on, and that might be one of the most iconic like unmasking or unveilings of a villain or monster like that too, because he takes it off. He's already terrifying when he's standing over Arnold, and then he takes the mask off and you're like, mother of God, this is the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. So
other than what is it, the Phantom of the Opera, I think those two are like neck and neck for like biggest unmaskings, or at least most iconic.
And then Jim Carrey in the mask is probably
yeah, you know.
So back in the day, I mean, it's always been chalked up to technical limitations as to why these villains or antagonists aren't really in a lot of the film. But that's one thing that I think today's directors should take away more than anything, is that less is more. I think when I looked it up, they said that Predator has 8 minutes of screen time total out of an hour and 47 minutes. So, I mean, and it's super effective. Everybody remembers the Predator taking off his mask, I think, more than most of the scenes in there. So,
how can you forget that horror moment?
Yeah. It's like 40 minutes before you see him in the trees, right? Because they have the whole extraction scene and the village where they're trying to get whoever out. I don't even remember how long it is.
I don't even think they show like the cloaked Predator for maybe even double that. They like show his vision. So like know he's watching. It's like the classic slasher point of view camera. Which is cool. I actually never thought about that they use the slasher point of view camera. That's kind of neat.
I think it's funny thinking about watching this movie and being so terrified that the Predator had such an advanced ability to track when it's nothing more than like a thermal scanner and just a couple graphics honing in on like the target he's choosing. But now you'd be like, they have that at TSA every time you walk through, like there's nothing going on there. So like, I think it's always a joy to go back and watch, to be like, this is the peak of technology in 1987. So that was a good chuckle too.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good realization. Yeah, that's not that scary. If you think about it that way, it's like, oh.
I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what Matt Baichun says. Predator 2 is awesome also. It completely flips it on its head of taking it to the concrete jungle. And you got Danny Glover and
do you love Danny Glover?
I do love Danny Glover. And what's his name? Not Bill Pullman.
Bill Paxton?
Yes, Bill Paxton.
Oh, I love Bill Paxton.
The only actor that's
yeah.
been in Alien, Predator, and Terminator.
Ooh, Terminator's a good one too. 80s had some killer action movies.
Tell me about it.
I think that was the decade of the action films.
Yeah.
Also, to harken back to the Schwarzenegger-Stallone kind of feud, in Last Action Hero, when Arnold Schwarzenegger doesn't exist because he's what is his name in Last Action Hero? They go to Blockbuster and there's a cardboard cutout for Terminator 2, and Sylvester Stallone is Terminator 2.
Yeah.
What is his name? Is it? It's Jack. Oh God, it's such a great name too.
It's like
it sounds
like
fake.
Action Hero. That's all it says. Action Hero.
When you're born with that name, I mean, what else are you gonna do?
Very true.
That was good.
Oh, all right. Who's got one for next time?
I think that's
You're
you
up.
now.
Yeah, it's on you, man.
Oh man.
Do you have any ideas? Or are we saving it for later?
I think we go. Oh man, this is so much more pressure than picking a cast.
It was. It took me a while to pick Predator.
Such a good pick, though. And actually, I just want to, while Andrew ruminates for a minute, I just want to thank you for picking Predator, for all the men characters that I got to look at.
You know, the whole reason.
I'm just kidding.
The whole reason why I picked it was like Betsy gets to like look at pictures of buff dudes for as many
She's
hours.
like, no, I'm just doing research for this show. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
And yeah, and then she just tells Nate it's research. I mean,
Yeah, like, Nate, I'm just doing my research. No, I didn't.
Yes, I have to do it alone.
I need peace and quiet. Let me do this. Let me do this myself, please.
Okay, so back to Andrew, putting the pressure on.
Oh
Well,
man, I think I know. No, I think I have my choice, and I think it's going to be really hard, but also really fun. I think we go with Back to the Future.
You know what?
Yes!
I've got it right here. It's going to be Robert Downey Jr. as Doc.
No, stop. No,
Christopher Lloyd now looks like he did when he played Doc, so like he could just.
He could just reprise his role, and it might even be more believable.
Just look at the deep fake that they did of Back to the Future. That's my cast right there.
Stop.
We're probably before we recast, we're probably going to exclude the Libyan terrorists as well. That's probably not aged well either, despite what Gaddafi might have said. So, on that note, that's our homework for next time. So we'll do Back to the Future next time. As always, Thank you for joining me both, Matt, for the excellent pick, and Betsy for your choices as well, and the amount of joy you took in doing your homework to cast this movie. Yeah, so like we said, Back to the Future's next, and we'll see everybody soon.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Later.